Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar titled Transfer Learning and its Applications in Image Analysis. I'm Sayam Bhotani, a machine learning engineer slash content creator at H2O. Thank you for joining us today. Transfer learning has slowly started to show great progress across all domains of deep learning research and machine learning research. And in this session, we'll be learning about what is transfer learning, why is it needed, and its application in different areas. Aditya and I will be explaining on how to use transfer learning and its use cases. I'd love to start by introducing my co-presenter, Aditya Lohia. He's a senior machine learning engineer at Guys AI. He's a self-taught ML practitioner and he wants to contribute to the community, and he's very gracefully hosting this talk. I am a ML engineer slash content creator at H2O. I'll be talking more about image analysis, and personally I'm a fan of computer vision. So you'll get to hear more about that from me. A few logistics before I quickly hand it over to Aditya. This presentation is being recorded. A copy of the recording and slide deck will be sent to you in the next day. And please feel free to drop your questions in the questions tab. All of your questions, we'll try to get all of them before the end of the session. Towards the later 10 minutes, we'll have a Q&A. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Aditya.
Hi guys, so I'm Aditya and thank you Sayan for introducing me. So I think we can start.
Yes, please. You should be able to share. I can see your
Yeah,
screen.
okay, all right. Yeah, so our talk topic is Intro to Transfer Learning and Image Analysis. Yeah, you can find, I'm Aditya Loy and you can find me at this LinkedIn address. I'll share it at a later stage as well. So what is transfer learning? So people often think that it is rocket science, but it is actually not. So, quoting a definition is transfer learning and domain adaptation refer to the situation where what has been learned in one setting is exploited to improve generalization in another setting. What that means in simple terms is transfer learning implies to apply the skills and knowledge learned in a task for one domain to another task for another domain. A good example of this would be to train a dog or cat classifier. So you can use transfer learning on a model trained on ImageNet dataset to train your custom classifiers. So as you can see in the image below, that is how we use transfer learning. Comparing traditional machine learning and transfer learning. So in traditional machine learning, what we do is we train each model for custom datasets for each task. So basically you train different models for different domains which pertains to different tasks. However, in a transfer learning environment, you use the learned features of a model, that is model 2, to train your model N, including the domain data for model N. And one might ask, why use transfer learning? So the ResNet 50 architecture, which is very famous in computer vision, has more than 23 million parameters. Nowadays, new state-of-the-art computer vision or NLP algorithms might have a much higher parameter count. Often it is impossible to train such large networks from scratch due to the time constraints of a project, hardware constraints of your system or your servers, and overfitting concerns due to the dataset size and variability. So let's understand this using a hypothetical scenario. Suppose your boss asks you to train a license plate detection algorithm and gives you barely a week. Now in this time, you have to gather data, you have to validate it, you have to augment it, and train and validate your model itself. Now don't forget to account for the training time of a state-of-the-art algorithm on a lower-end GPU like 1050 Ti. So instead of training from scratch on such a GPU, you can use transfer learning with a pre-trained object detector and get the training done much faster. And often sometimes you might even get better accuracies than when you train from scratch. These are some of the advantages of transfer learning. So one is improved baseline performance. So it is when we augment the knowledge of an isolated learner with the knowledge from a source model, the baseline performance might improve due to this knowledge transfer because it is now learning on many datasets. Model development time. So utilizing knowledge from a source model might also help in fully learning the target task as compared to a target model that learns from scratch. Now this in turn results in improvements in the overall time taken to develop or learn a model. Improved final performance. Sometimes you might often get final performance which will be higher than what you will get when you train from scratch. So as you can see from this figure, If you train a model using transfer learning, you can get a higher start. You can go on to get a higher slope, which means your algorithm would train much faster than training from scratch, and you can get a higher asymptote. That is, you can get a better accuracy than your training from scratch algorithms. What are the three questions that are primarily to be answered before you move on to train your model using transfer learning? Now, what to transfer? So this is the first and most important step in the whole process. We try to understand which part of the knowledge can be transferred from the source model to the target model to improve its performance. So when trying to answer this question, we try to identify which portion of knowledge is source specific and what is common between the source and the target. So the following are the types of transfer tasks. So one is instance transfer. Reusing knowledge from the source domain to the target task is usually an ideal scenario. In most cases, the source domain cannot be reused directly, however. Rather, there are certain instances from a source domain that can be reused along with the target data to improve results. What is a feature representation transfer? So this approach aims to minimize domain divergence and reduce error rates by identifying good feature representations that can be utilized from the source to target domain. What is a parameter transfer? This approach works on the assumption that the models for the related task share some parameters on prior distribution of hyperparameters. What is a relational knowledge transfer? Unlike the preceding three approaches, the relational knowledge transfer attempts to handle data where each data point has a relationship with other data points. For instance, a social network data utilizes relational knowledge transfer techniques. So this is what constitutes what to transfer question. Now what's the answer to when to transfer? So there can be scenarios where transferring knowledge for the sake of it may make matters worse than improving anything. This is also known as negative transfer. We should aim at utilizing transfer learning to improve target task performance and results and not degrade them. We need to be careful about when to transfer and when not to. So there are some scenarios that I've listed on the way when to transfer. So one of it is limited data, labeled data from training from scratch, or when a pre-trained network exists for the same task, and how to transfer. So once the what and when have been answered, we can proceed toward identifying ways of actually transferring the knowledge across domains. This involves changes to existing algorithms and different techniques. So what is the characterization of different methods? So there are three typical transfer learning methods, and there have been many more advancements in the recent age. One of it is inductive transfer, another is unsupervised transfer, and the third one is transductive transfer. So in inductive transfer, the source and target domains are same, yet the source and target tasks are different. The algorithms try to utilize the inductive biases of the source domain to improve the target task. Depending on whether the source domain contains labeled data or not, this can be further divided into two subcategories, similar to multitask learning and self-taught learning, respectively. This can be done in different ways, such as by adjusting the inductive bias of the target task, by limiting the model space, or narrowing down the hypothesis space, or making adjustments to the source process itself with the help of knowledge from the source task. So what is unsupervised transfer? This setting is similar to the inductive transfer itself, with a focus on unsupervised tasks in the transfer domain. The source and target domains are similar, but the tasks are different. In this scenario, labeled data is unavailable in either of the domains. And what is transductive transfer? In this scenario, there are similarities between the source and target tasks, but the corresponding domains are different. In this setting, the source domain has a lot of labeled data while the target domain has none. This can be further classified into subcategories referring to settings where either the feature spaces are different or the marginal probabilities. What are different types of deep transfer learning? One of it is domain adaptation, wherein a data set on which the machine was trained is different from the target data set. So a good example of this would be an object detection model. Let's say the model was trained on vehicles from USA. When the model is used for vehicles in India, domain adaptation will be used, because even though the task is same, India has different types of architecture, design, colors than the vehicles in USA. What is multitask learning? The method involves two or more tasks being resolved simultaneously so that the similarities and differences can be leveraged. It is based on the idea that a model that has been trained on a related task can gain skills to improve its ability in the new task. Going back to our object detection model, let's say this model is learning what features it should look for when identifying four-wheelers in USA and India. Because the countries are very different, the model needs to look for different features in order to identify each country's four-wheelers. For example, USA cars can have a different design than Indian cars, so the feature of either car should be recognized as a part of the car. It should not differentiate among them. While simultaneously learning to detect cars from US and India, the model learns that regardless of different features, a two-wheeler is not marked as a car. What is zero-shot learning? This technique involves a model trying to solve a task to which is not exposed to during training. For example, let's say we are training a model to identify animals in a picture. To identify the animals, the machine is taught to identify two parameters, the color yellow and spots. The model is then trained on multiple pictures of chicks which it learns to identify because they are yellow but do not have spots, and Dalmatians which it knows that has spots but are not yellow. To expand on this example, you may not have pictures of giraffes on which to train the model, but the model knows that the giraffes are yellow and have spots. When the model encounters an image of a giraffe, it will be able to identify it even though it has never seen a giraffe in training. One-shot learning. This approach requires a model learns how to categorize an object after being exposed to it either once or just a few times. To do this, the model leverages information it has known about known categories. For example, our animal classifying model knows how to identify a horse. The model is then exposed to a single photo of a zebra, which looks exactly like a horse but has white and black stripes. The model will then be able to classify zebras without being exposed to additional pictures because it transferred knowledge it already had about horses. So these are the ways in which you can use transfer learning in deep learning. So there are different transfer learning methodologies. One is feature extractor. So suppose take a pre-trained ConvNet network on an ImageNet, remove the last fully connected layers. So these layers outputs are the 100,000 class codes for a different task like ImageNet, which was the labels for the ImageNet dataset. Then treat the rest of the ConvNet as a fixed feature extractor for the new dataset. So in an LXNet, this would compute a 4096 dimensional vector for every image that contains the activations of a hidden layer immediately before the classifier. We call these features CNN codes. Once you extract these embeddings or the 4096 dimension codes for all images, you can train a linear classifier like a linear SVM or a softmax classifier for your new dataset and for a new task. So this is one of the methods you can use transfer learning. Another one is fine tuning. In this strategy, you not only replace and retrain the classifier on top of a ConvNet on the new dataset, but you also fine-tune the weights of the pre-trained network by continuing the backpropagation. It is possible to fine-tune all the layers of a ConvNet, or it is possible to keep some of the earlier layers fixed. That is, due to overfitting concerns, we do that and only fine-tune some higher level portions of the network. This is motivated by the observation that the earlier features of a ConvNet contain more generic features, that is edge detection or color blob detection, that should be useful to many tasks. But later layers of the ConvNet becomes progressively more specific to the task that you are training on. In case of an ImageNet, for example, which contains many dog breeds, a significant portion of the representational power of the ConvNet may be devoted to features that are specific to differentiating between dog breeds. So what are pre-trained models? Now, since ConvNets may take 2 or 3 weeks to train across multiple GPUs on an ImageNet dataset, it is common to see people release their final ConvNet checkpoints for the benefit of others who can use the networks for fine-tuning. For example, the Caffe library has a model zoo where people share their network weights. Similarly, you have PyTorch Hub, and you can use pre-trained networks from TensorFlow to fine-tune them. So when and how to fine-tune? So how do you decide on what type of transfer learning you should perform on a new dataset? This is a function of several factors, but the two most important ones are the size of the new dataset, that is big or small, and its similarity to the original dataset. Keeping in mind that ConvNet features are more generic in early layers and more original dataset specific in later layers, here are some common rules of thumb for navigating the four major scenarios. So what if your new dataset is small and similar to the original dataset? Since the data is small, it is not a good idea to fine-tune the ConvNet due to overfitting concerns. Since the data is similar to the original dataset, however, we can expect higher level features in the ConvNet to be relevant to this dataset as well. Hence, the best idea might be to train a linear classifier on the CNN codes. So what to do when a new dataset is large and similar to the original dataset? Since we have more data, we can have more confidence that we won't overfit even if we are trying to fine tune the full network. So in this case, you can fine tune through the full network. What if your new dataset is small but very different from the original dataset? Since the data is small, it is likely best to only train a linear classifier. Since the data is very different, it might not be best to train the classifier from top of the network, which contains more dataset specific features. Instead, it might work to better to train the SVM classifier from activation somewhere earlier in the network. That is not in the lab from the second last layer, which is the CNN codes, but before that. New dataset is large and different and very different from the original dataset. What do you do in this case? Since the dataset is very large, we may expect that we can afford to train a ConvNet from scratch. However, in practice, it is very often still beneficial to initialize the weights from a pre-trained model. In this case, we would have enough data and confidence to fine-tune through the entire network. Some practical advice that I have myself experienced while training many networks. So one is constraints from a pre-trained networks. So note that if you wish to use a pre-trained network, you might still be constrained in terms of the architecture you can use for your new dataset. For example, you can arbitrarily take out ConvNets from the pre-trained network. However, some changes are straightforward. Due to the parameter sharing, you can easily run a pre-trained network on images of different spatial size. This is clearly evident in the case of a conv or pool layers because their forward function is independent of the input volume spatial size as long as the strides fit. In case of fully connected layers, this still holds true because fully connected layers can be converted to a convolutional layer. For example, in LXNet, the final pooling volume before the fully connected layer is of size 6 by 6 by 512. Therefore, the FC layer, fully connected layer, looking at this volume is equivalent to having a convolutional layer that has a receptive field size of 6 by 6 and is applied with a padding of 0. And learning rates. It's common to use a smaller training rate, smaller learning rate for a ConvNet weights that are being fine-tuned in comparison to the randomly initialized weights for the new linear classifier that computes the class scores of your new dataset. This is because we expect that the ConvNet weights are relatively good, so we don't wish to distort them too quickly and too much, especially while the new linear classifier above them is being trained from random initialization. There are many applications of deep learning that have been there are many applications of transfer learning that have been developed in computer vision, NLP, and speech recognition. Deep learning has been very successful in utilizing various computer vision tasks such as object identification using different CNN architectures. Some findings have helped in utilizing existing state-of-the-art models such as VGG, AlexNet, InceptionNet, ResNets for target tasks such as style transfer and face detection that were different from what these models were trained for. Textual data represents all sorts of challenges when it comes to ML and deep learning. These are usually transformed or vectorized using different techniques. Embeddings such as word2vec and fastest have been prepared using different training datasets. These are utilized in different tasks such as sentiment analysis and document classification. By transferring the knowledge from the source tasks, transfer learning with speech or audio. Similar to text and computer vision domains, deep learning has been successfully used for tasks based on audio data. For instance, automatic speech recognition models have been developed for English, have been successfully used to improve speech recognition performance for other languages like German. Also, automated speaker identification is another example when transfer learning has greatly helped. So I would like to show you a demo that I've prepared for transfer learning in NLP. Primarily, what we'll be doing is we'll be using the BERT model for intent classification. So these are some of the installation steps. Now here I start to import all the libraries as well as the various color palettes that I want to display my data with. I download the training files. I read the training files, then I check the shape, I check the head. So this data is basically trying to identify the intent of the text that you will supply to it. So for example, listening to a West Bam album Allergic on Google Music. This intent is playing music. Add step to me to the 50 Classios playlist. This is add to playlist intent. Similarly, there are various intents as shown here. Now we can see the number of intents based on this chart below. You can see that almost the entire data set has an equal number of intents, and you won't have to worry about lower sample size for some of the labels. You can download the BERT model from this API, and then I'll just load the model, and then I'll load a class which will hold the various details about the data set. That would be the tokenizer, max sequential, and then the classes of the data sets. I have a prepare function, and I have a padding function for the data sets. So now for an NLP task, what we'll need to do is we'll need to tokenize the sentences. So for an example, you can use the full tokenizer, and you can use an example like I love India to see how it tokenizes the sentence. So, and then you can convert these tokens to IDs. Now these IDs are used by your NLP model to identify various sentences and words. So here in this create model function, what I've done is I've used the BERT classifier, and I've used that and appended some of the layers here at the end. So essentially I am training the last few layers as well as fine tuning the BERT classifier itself. I compile my model, and then here you can see a model summary. So as you can see, the BERT has a lot many parameters, and it's simply not if time efficient to view or to train the model from scratch. So hence I'll use fine tuning for this model, and I'll use training from scratch for these layers. I'll use the loss sparse categorical cross entropy, and I'll use the sparse categorical accuracy for this task. And then once I begin I've already trained this network. It takes some time to train it, and I don't think we have the time to actually train it now. So you can see that my accuracy increases from 0.12 to 0.87, and finally it converges on 0.9. Now validation accuracy itself is 0.98. So that means you don't have an overfitting concern. Here I have shown you a training graph. This is the loss over training epochs, how it has been decreased. So you can see that only after one epoch the loss has been significantly reduced, and now this is because of transfer learning. You might not observe this when you train a model from scratch. And you can see the accuracy graph, and you can see that similar to loss, the accuracy has increased in just one epoch. And then you can see the training and testing accuracy. So I can use my the data set, the test set, to see my classification report. And as you can see, the precision, recall, and F1 scores are relatively very good, and in fact you can say that these are industry specific. And then I'll show you with a confusion matrix where it was predicting correctly and where it failed. So you can see that some of the examples here, 11921, these are the examples that it failed to recognize properly. And yeah, that happens. So I can show you with a demo. So I'll use two sentences: play a song now and read this book as awful. I'll use my tokenizer. I'll create a CLS and SCP strings. I'll create the token IDs, and I'll pass it to the model. So as you can see, by giving a text play a song, it correctly identifies the intent as play music. Similarly, giving a text read this book as awful, it correctly identifies the intent as read book. Now this training took a very short time as compared to training from scratch. As you can see, the times are listed here. So I believe that you can gain a very good accuracy with very less time, and you should use transfer learning wherever it is possible. As for this, yeah, this was my session. I would like to hand it over to Sayan now for his session, and I can answer questions at the end of the session.
Thanks, Aditya. This was great. Let me quickly switch to sharing my screens.
Yeah, I've changed the presenter.
Sure. Okay. Hopefully you can see driverless AI. That's not what I want to start with. I'll quickly introduce transfer learning in computer vision, expand a bit on what Aditya has set us up for, and maybe dive a little, give some intro to computer vision pipelines, and then expand upon that and maybe give a live demo in driverless AI. Let me quickly get rid of all of these pop-ups that I have floating around. All right, I'm good to go. So I currently work at H2O.ai. Like I mentioned, our goal is to democratize AI, and our mission is to use AI for good, which permeates into everything we do. We work with different industrial partners. We have strong community for open source and all of our cutting edge platforms. And we are also very involved with social and AI for good work. So if you're excited about these things, please feel free to find me after the webinar gets over. Intro to computer vision. There'll be some theory, some jargon being thrown around. So please bear with me. I'll quickly try to get over with this and get to the demo. Broadly speaking, there are quite a few types of computer vision problems. The main ones that are being used in the industry can be broadly classified into the following. So the first one is pretty straightforward. It's cats and dogs. I'm sure everyone is familiar with it at this point. Hot dogs and not hot dogs, same story, although a little bit more interesting, a little bit more conversation sparking. The second one that is more important to, I believe, a lot of industries and a lot of practical use cases is semantic segmentation. So here we're not trying to detect what's in the image, we're trying to understand the pixels at individual levels. Now, why would you even want to do that? Let's say for a self-driving car that's driving on the road, you'd want to understand which pixel is a footpath, which pixel is the road, where are you allowed to drive. And I am speaking for the self-driving car. So the robot, the car is trying to think and understand, okay, this is a road, I'm allowed to drive here. That's a red light, it's red, I have to stop. So semantic segmentation, understanding pixels is helpful there. It's also helpful for background extraction or different tasks. I can keep going on about that. The next one is object detection. So in this, essentially, we're trying to detect individual objects inside of an image. So take this image that is on the slide. We're trying to identify and draw a bounding box around the individual dogs and cats. Maybe the trees as well. I'm sure you've seen a few SSD and YOLO demos. All of those are object detection algorithms and pipelines. Instance segmentation. So I just mentioned background extraction. Instance segmentation can be used there. When we are taking portrait images on our phones or DSLR cameras, some form of background defocusing is happening. That happens because the camera is able to, A, it has a nice sensor, B, it's able to segment your outline from the background. So we'd like to understand that for regular use cases as well and for quite a few industrial use cases. So what are these use cases that I'm just waving my hand around? Well, these range from quite a few industries. The ones that are quite prominent today in 2020 would be A, in healthcare. These algorithms, these pipelines are being used for photos of MRIs, CT scans, X-ray images. Now, these are not being used to replace a doctor or to substitute for a part of the pipeline. This is another helping tool. So think of it like a tool that helps understand images a little faster, a tool that helps annotate maybe ultrasounds faster. I'm not a medical expert, but in quite a few different scenarios, these have shown a lot of promise and have proven to be very beneficial. In agriculture, these can be extensively and are being used for seed identification, for disease identification on different plants. So as a farmer or as a AI engineer collaborating with a farmer, you'd like to help them understand how are their crops doing, how are, if at all, any of the crops are infected with any disease, and you could use computer vision for that. The end goal would be to have a fleet of drones fly around your farm, automatically take care of everything that needs to be done, and they dispatch a signal that takes care of bulldozers. If that sounds too familiar, I'm referring to Interstellar. Satellite images, essentially any image that we have or are capturing as humans has some importance to us. So how I look at it is, how can we use all of these things, these algorithms, and apply them to these images that we are capturing. I'll quickly get to where transfer learning comes into the picture. It plays a very central role across all of these. but it's more important to understand these different applications. So for satellite imagery, you'd like to, if you have images of, for example, we can see a few things here, clouds, oceans or fields. You'd like to understand landscape, you'd like to understand weather, you'd like to understand what's going on in the sea. Is there any illegal uh, capturing happening? Is that a restricted zone by a certain organization where you can see boats and maybe they're not allowed? Now you could do this manually as well, but you'd essentially like to utilize some form of tools to help you fast track that path. Again, you can do object detection or segmentation, and you could do both as well depending on the use case. So that's where those applications come into play. Autonomous vehicles, now it's very synonymous with Tesla's. Their FSD features have been rolling out throughout this year, but think of how beautiful all of that is. You have a car, you have a machine that's able to understand what's going around. It's able to keep itself within a lane, it's able to switch lanes, and in its full capacity even take you from point A to point B with almost no human intervention. And this was almost impossible. This was a far-fetched goal in the last decade. The first DARPA vehicle appeared in 2012. And as you can see, the bounding boxes are just cars being detected. There's, of course, different algorithms, including mapping as well, that happens, but quite a lot of computer vision also comes into play here. And for cars like Tesla or the companies that take the computer vision path, there are two paths that you can take with self-driving cars. First is using LiDAR sensors or just using computer vision, maybe using both, which is known as fusion. But if you're relying solely on computer vision, a lot of interesting engineering is required to make things happen. And many other rules as well, trying to understand different scripts. So this is a screenshot from Devanagari script, if I remember correctly, maybe a Bengali script if I'm not too wrong. Understanding deep fakes, understanding defects in manufacturing. So as a manufacturer of metals, for example, you'd like to understand if there are any defects in the sheets that are being manufactured, microscopic defects that could be fatal for construction. So you can identify all of these things. A quick primer on what CNNs are, because this is relevant for understanding how does transfer learning work. The first image is a very simplified representation of a deep neural network. It has a few hidden layers and an input and output layer. Inside all of these layers, a few interesting things happen for CNNs. It's passing these filters over individual layers over inputs, and the feature maps that are generated. So the green thing that's being generated here is the feature map is passed on further in the network, and this continues for a little while. So we have an input through which we generate feature maps, a collection of these, a deep network is created, and finally we get a prediction, a set of outputs. This is a CNN, essentially. Now, as we train all of these networks, we've also started to try and interpret what's happening inside of them. Different layers try to understand different things. The initial few layers try to understand general shapes and edges. So this is a paper by Zeiler and Fergus who have visualized what happens inside of the network. And as we go deeper into the network, they start to get more nuanced. So they start understanding shapes, they start understanding objects. What I'm trying to point out through this is, as we train a network, we start to collect a lot of rich information. And we'd like to utilize this whenever possible. So here's a collection of quite a bit of architectures in computer vision that have come up. And these represent accuracy against the processing power required. As you can see, the higher we go up in accuracy, quite a bit of compute power, in other words, AWS bills, in other words, late night meetings are involved. We'd like to avoid that. This is a representation of state-of-the-art models and their accuracy. The thing that isn't captured here is, sure, we've gone up in accuracy. almost getting close to 90, more than 90% in top one accuracies over the years. But these models have become more and more resource consuming. So here's an example of the most widely used network. It's ResNet 34, if I remember correctly. And what's happening, if you remember the paper I had just showcased, let's assume this is trained on ImageNet, which is one of the largest image data sets out there. All of these layers from input to everything between and before output capture these details, these nuances of images that they have been trained upon to that high accuracy. We'd like to use this. This is not something we'd want to throw away. You wouldn't want to start from scratch. If there is a way to use these for your problem, for your own domain, I mean, sure, hot dogs and not hot dogs is an interesting problem, but you wouldn't want a $10,000 AWS bill, maybe a bit exaggerated for it. So you could figure out a way to use this for building a state-of-the-art hot dog or not hot dog classifier, and that is transfer learning. Taking the knowledge that has been captured by these layers, it's okay if you don't understand what's happening inside there, but these understand nuances of images. Taking this knowledge, using it for your own task, tuning it a bit because, hey, maybe your images are a bit different, and avoiding that huge AWS bill. Since we're not starting from scratch, we're starting with a better model. That's the intuition behind transfer learning. So how do we do transfer learning specifically for computer vision? Our flagship product Driverless AI has a few capabilities built in for computer vision approaches. The first one is creating an embedding transformer. This just converts images to fixed embeddings. This can be run on CPU, and it works really nicely for mixed data types. So maybe you don't just have images, maybe it's a mix of data types. You can utilize that. If you want AutoML just for images, we have automatic image model. This runs on GPU. It can do automatic hyperparameter and model selection for you. Inside of automatic hyperparameter selection, driverless AI can figure out, and I'm waving my hands a bit, but I'll quickly get to the demo to show what I'm talking about. Driverless AI can figure out different hyperparameters for you. Essentially, you don't have to sit through your notebooks and keep increasing the batch sizes until you run out of memory, and then you have to go through the tedious process of going up, restarting the notebook, and running it again. Hopefully, not having a code out of memory error. You don't have to worry about that. You're a data scientist. You can launch an experiment. Driverless AI takes care of it. You can move on to the next experiment, continue experimenting. In the automated training process, the following are taken care of. Well, the number of epochs are already understood based on your requirements. Augmentations and learning rate, scheduling is taken care of. Essentially, things that aren't necessarily worth investing time for, so that you can maximize your productivity by using driverless as a tool. Currently, we support classification and embedding transformers and regression. Semantic segmentation, the prototype is ready and will be rolled out very soon. And we have object detection and instance segmentation support being developed currently. We have quite a few recipes. So we can use recipes to deal with deep fakes, to deal with audio data converted into spectrogram, and essentially apply automated machine learning on it. Now let me show you what I've been talking about, and let me quickly do a demo of driverless. So this is what I like to call the Iron Man dashboard. An experiment is currently running, but I'd like to interrupt this because I'd like to start a fresh experiment. So I'll quickly walk you through the different and speak through the different steps in a data science pipeline or a computer vision pipeline. I've loaded up a few data sets. You could load up different data sets. You could simply upload your file, drag and drop it into this menu, load it through your file system, connect your S3 bucket, and do other interesting stuff. I have already loaded up these data sets. This one is somewhat relevant to a regular use case. It contains images of messy versus cleaned rooms. So let me quickly look into this data set. Now, essentially, you could classify this as EDA, exploring your data, analyzing your own data. So I just want to make sure that, hey, this does have images in a expected format and these do make sense. So I can see that, sure, there are images of clean and messy rooms. The messy rooms actually look quite messy. So the data is as expected. Things are working like they should. We're good to go. What I'm going to do next is try to launch an experiment on this. So I can simply hit predict and it'll take me to one of my favorite screens. I call it the Ironman dashboard. This is the main driverless AI interface. To remind you, what I'm trying to showcase to you here is how can we effectively apply transfer learning and how does it come in handy with driverless AI. So now it's prompting me to select the target column. And the target for us is labels. We're trying to label an image if it's messy or if it has very clean rooms. These three knobs, now they aren't absolute. This doesn't mean 80% interpretability or 40% accuracy. These are relative, which means that I'm requesting driverless AI. Hey driverless, please allocate 4 chunks of the importance to accuracy, 2 of it to time, and maybe make the model very interpretable. In interest of time and for the lack of my GPU power, I'd like to tone these down for a demo. And as I fiddle around with these things, if you notice towards the left, driverless is figuring out by itself what feature engineering can be done, what models can be trained, and what final pipelines can be generated. So these are the techniques that I was referring to when I mentioned that uh, AutoML takes care of all of these things. Where does transfer learning come into the picture? So I've hopped onto the image tab inside of the expert settings, and I have quite a few options here. Now, as an expert in computer vision, I'm trying to figure out what would be the best settings. So first thing I'd like to do is enable fine tuning for the pre-trained image models. Now, essentially, we're taking that resonate image that I had shown or whatever model we're using and fine tuning it to our target problem, our target domain. What models are we training? If you remember that graph of all of those models that I had shown, we figured out that, hey, these could be the most important ones for different problems. And we have support for all of these. So let me tell driverless AI, hey, please driverless train a model on efficient BNet, because as a computer vision expert, I know that this works really well for my problem, or I would anticipate it to work really well for my problem. You know what, maybe MobileNet is also a good option. So ResNet 34 in there and ResNet 50. Now, as I hit save after adding all of these, what will happen is driverless AI will train models based on all of these, do some interesting feature engineering, do some interesting ensembling, and these aren't being trained from scratch. So these are pre-trained models that are being fine-tuned for my very important data set containing images of messy versus clean data. Assuming you're in a fight with your partner and you'd like to point them out that you actually have a clean room, right? This is important stuff. So we're using all of these models and trying to figure out which could be the best depending on your use case. Now, as I hit launch experiment and give it a minute to start computing the first few features and variable importance, it'll start going through all of these experiments that I had just mentioned and start training models throughout all of these feature spaces and model space. This might take a minute. So what I'm going to do is hop over to experiments. I don't have much to game about, so I had run a few experiments overnight. Let me show you one that I had run on the same data set. So this was a final image model pipeline that I had created. And once I'm able to create a model pipeline out of a data set, you can understand what actually happened there. So these are the best model hyperparameters that came out of this one. For my 11 GB GPU, apparently a batch size of 24 was the best we could get. ResNet 50 performed the best on this data set. You can look at the different curves that you might be interested in. And you can also investigate the train images to make sure these are actually the images you'd expect, and look at the augmented images. You can also visualize using heat maps or grad camps which parts of the images were helpful for classifying it into whatever parts that were required. So, yep, this makes sense. A clean sofa is actually what makes an image clean, and the messy part on the bed is what makes the image messy. So, our model is working as expected. We can happily use this in a fight against our partner that says that our room isn't clean. So, this is still taking a minute to complete. So, what I'm going to do is showcase another feature by just kicking off another experiment. Now, the interesting thing about transfer learning is you wouldn't just want to use a single model, right? You'd want to run as many experiments. You'd want to come up with the best option that would work nicely for your data set. So in driverless 1.9, we have an option known as creating a leaderboard. But for creating a leaderboard, we need to decide the contestant. So I'm going to quickly again select maybe all of these, invert my selection and select all of these models because why not? AWS wills can be paid, right? And when I hit create leaderboard, what will happen is a series of experiments will be kicked off, at the end of which I can simply select a training data set and evaluate all of them against that. So we can use transfer learning from all of those models I had selected. It will be done in the background, and we'll get this really nice leaderboard of all of the validation scores and test scores and test time for all of these data sets. So this is where you can use AutoML as a tool which does have inbuilt transfer learning capabilities to accelerate your experiments for image problems and problems that might even have mixed data sets. So what do I mean by that? Time to kick off another experiments. I love kicking off experiments in driverless AI just because I like the interface so much. So this data set is from a Kaggle competition. It's titled Pet Finder. And your job as a data scientist or as a competitor here was to figure out the adoption speed of a pet. The data provided included images of different pets, different dogs, along with a few features. So as I've selected the target column, this will become a mixed data type problem, which means that we'd also like to use combination of different things. So this could also be expanded to, let's say, room reviews on Airbnb, right? You would have images of the rooms along with reviews. So if you had such a problem, you can also apply mixed data sets and apply transfer learning to both of them, which can again produce interesting results. I'm not going to launch experiment because I want to go easy on my GPU now, but this is all I had for this very quick demo. And I think we can quickly transition into questions. So I see we have quite a few interesting questions. Let me quickly start by going through them and selecting the first ones. I think this is for you, Aditya. Please give an example of targets that are similar but are of different domains.
Okay. Yeah, so one of it can be that you're trying to like train a spam detection classifier. So you can have the targets will be different because different users have different. Sorry, the targets are similar because ultimately you're trying to identify spam from ham, and the domains are different because different users are having different emails which can be marked as spam. Another one can be the transduction grammar, that is like you want to translate one sentence from one uh, language to to the sentence for another language. So in that case, transduction grammar is also useful. So these are the two examples for that.
Thank you. Um, the next one is how to couple federated learning and transfer learning. Would you like to take that?
So I've never myself done that. Like, yeah, I
Sure,
remember myself.
maybe I can give it.
Yeah.
I can take a go at it. There's this project called OpenMind by Andrew Trask. It's one of the leaders in federated learning, and they have shown effectively, I think, how to work with these different techniques. Um, it's quite interesting to be able to apply these techniques in an effective manner. I would advise looking at the repo. I don't have much expertise in it as well, but I know that's a good resource to look into. Will we be sharing the presentation? Definitely, it'll be sent over in under a day. How do we apply transfer learning on decision trees such as XGBoost? Can we apply transfer learning to regression problems? Would you like to take that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, so you can actually apply transfer learning to regression problems, and many have done it. Like a simple example would be applying transfer learning to detect house prices, which is generally a basic task that we start with. So you can take a model and then you can actually fine tune it. You can fine tune each model according to your data set, but make sure that you don't train it for like 500 epochs or 100 epochs. Otherwise, it's just training from scratch. It will overturn your entire weights.
That's a great point. Thanks, Aditya. And
Thank
it's
you.
easier to fine tune and go the other way where you're just unnecessarily fine tuning. So that I think
Yeah.
comes with experience. Um, what are the best hardware specifications for transfer learning? Please specify best transfer learning specs for computer vision. Maybe I can take a go. So Aditya had briefly mentioned that you can also do this on a 1050 Ti. I don't see any reason why you can't do it on a regular graphic card. On Colab, he had shown a very nice demo of using BERT in Colab. That's quite a big model, right? That's a beauty of transfer learning. You don't need as much resources, at least compared to those 8 V100s that were used to train a model. So I think it's possible to use this on any reasonable graphic card that might be available or any reasonable hardware that might be available at your end. How should we add trainable layers in case of transfer learning? Aditya, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So as I showed in my Google Colab demo, what I did was I did fine tuning for BERT as well as I added some of the trainable layers in transfer learning. So what we have to do is you have to connect the last layer of BERT and your suppose you are adding a linear layer. So you have to connect those and you have to compile that model and then train it. So automatically the trainable layers, that is your linear layer, will get trained while you will only be fine tuning the BERT layers. So basically you can do it, and if you want to dig deep you can actually change the entire architecture. Now that take times, freezing models, freezing layers and freezing them and doing all sorts of experiments.
Thank you. Can you give examples of zero shot and one shot learning?
So as we know that zero shot learning, like I gave an example that when you're trying to identify like chickens in a photo and you are trying to identify other than chickens dimensions, so you have yellow and you have spots. Now if you're trying to identify giraffe, it's zero shot learning. It has never seen a giraffe, but it knows that an animal should be yellow and it should have spots. So that is one example of zero shot learning. As for one shot learning, so suppose you are trying to like you have trained a model to identify a horse and you have only given one zebra example. Now the model only needs to learn that zebras are white and have stripes. So that is another example of one shot learning.
Awesome. What is considered a quote unquote small data set in computer vision? When to decide fine tuning versus using a linear classifier? I guess I could take a go at it. It depends on which person do you talk to, which academic institute or practical institute do they come out of. There's quite a bit of overlap. I think personally, I would always like to start with deep learning or just throwing a ResNet 34 on the problem because just because they work so nicely with them. I don't think linear classifiers could work really nicely, but depending on the problem, if you're just applying for your toy data set, it might work. In real world, it may not. So I would prefer using a CNN model for that. Would you want to add anything to that, Aditya?
I think you covered most of it. It's true that we like everyone differs on the notations of a small data set.
Awesome. So there's a question about use of TensorFlow in transfer learning. How can we use TensorFlow in transfer learning, or what should we use for transfer learning?
So shall I take it?
Please.
Yeah, so as I showed in my demo, in fact, I used Keras, and that's a wrapper around TensorFlow. So basically, I was using TensorFlow in transfer learning. What it's just like you write your own network from scratch by defining various classes, con layers, and linear layers, stuff like that. You can do the same. You just have to connect. You have to compile the model in a sequential manner. Your linear layers should come after the pre-trained model that you are trying to use, and then when you when you run model.compile, TensorFlow automatically takes care of that. You don't have to worry about the interconnection between your new layers and a pre-trained layer.
Awesome. To add to that, the framework doesn't matter so much. If you literally look at the example code for transfer learning in Keras, like Aditya mentioned, versus transfer learning in PyTorch, they're awfully similar, and
Yeah.
both of, or actually all of the frameworks start to converge eventually. So just use whatever is at your disposal. The tool isn't important; the task is more important. So it's possible across most of the frameworks today. So there's a question I think for driverless. The interpretability score that the knob I had shown essentially helps you tune how interpretable the models can be. So if you'd like them to be more interpretable, the interesting feature engineering that is taken care of will still happen, but less ensembling will happen so that the models can be interpreted better. And you can decide what are your requirements there. If your data contains two folders, you can zip them up and upload them to driverless. So you don't have to individually drop them. I think we've gotten to the last round of questions. I can take another question if there's any final one. What is the best way to handle imbalance in CNN? Class weights or oversampling or a combination of both? Would you like to take this, Aditya?
Definitely, thanks. So I believe that different tasks require different methodologies to do this. Some might require oversampling while others might require different. So that typically depends on the task that you are trying to solve.
Um, thanks. I think again it comes with experience. Aditya is a domain expert in CV, and again as you experiment, you start to understand what may or may not work, and you still have to experiment again.
Yeah.
So just try and see what works best. We're we're at the top of the hour. I'd like to quickly thank Aditya for the amazing presentation, and a thank you to everyone who joined us today. The presentation and the slides, the recording will be sent in an email shortly. And thank you for joining. I hope you all have a great day. Aditya, any last words from you before we end in the webinar?
Thank you, Sam, for hosting me, and thank you, attendees, for joining my talk.
Awesome.
I'll be happy to connect with any one of you if you're interested in talk more on transfer learning.
Great. Please find Aditya on LinkedIn and feel free to connect with him. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.